In this video, I'm going to explain how to use a new function in the grid variance analysis program. It's called the investment analysis option, or otherwise known as the strategy option. On the selection sheet, you'll find the investment analysis option just down the middle of near the middle of the screen on the left-hand side. When you select the investment analysis as yes, the first thing that will happen is that you will get an end-user license agreement. You need to click OK on the end-user license agreement every time you use this particular function. This option is by far the most complex part of the GVA program. It's not just going to collect and present data, it's going to use the data to provide the user with estimates of cash flow, capital growth and potential profits from renovation. You are also unlikely to find anything similar in any other real estate research tool. All of the options on this particular screen are pre-selected by the program, and the only input allowed by the user is the selection of the town and state. However, before we click on the investment analysis option and actually process the selection, what we need to do is to set up some system defaults. Setting up the defaults is the first thing that we need to do, and on the defaults tab you'll find on the left hand side some strategy parameters that apply to every project you do, and these are the parameters that are used by the program to determine whether a project is viable or not. And on the right hand side there are a lot of costs associated with adding bedrooms and bathrooms that need to be supplied in order for the program again to calculate whether the addition of these types of things like bedrooms and bathrooms and car spaces will result in a renovation that is profitable. Once the system defaults are set up, we can go back to the selection sheet and press process selection once we've entered the suburb and the state that we want to process. At the completion of the process, you'll find that the variation percentages have been calculated. What we need to know here is that if the variation percentages are not high enough, then it is unlikely that the investment analysis will find any meaningful projects. This may be slightly different if you're a home buyer looking for a home because the program will still calculate or at least project potential growth opportunities for you. When all of the processing is complete and the strategy sheet is selected, the program will process all properties against the list of scenarios that you see on your screen now. There are 6 scenarios altogether, relating mostly to renovations, but also to buy for rent and cash flow and capital growth, which can also be suitable for home buyers. Each property analysed will get a rating based on its potential for investment, as you can see the strategy ratings on the right hand side. Once the processing is complete, we'll see a complete list of all of the properties, exactly the same properties as they're listed on the results tab, but with just a lot of new data and with a lot of information, additional information and their rankings. On the left-hand side of the strategy sheet is the all of the addresses for all of the properties that have been selected in the process. The only difference on this particular sheet is that the addresses are highlighted if renovation or other keywords are mentioned in the advertisement. The prices are also exactly as shown in the real estate advertisements, and they're highlighted in the cases where the prices are estimated. The next 5 columns are dynamic and they can actually be changed by the user so that the user can add any missing data, such as the number of beds, baths and car spaces can just be added. When this happens, the program will automatically recalculate all of the other information in relation to that particular configuration. Notice also that some of the numbers are red and some of the numbers are green. In the case of a red number, it indicates that the quantity that's been advertised, such as the number of beds, baths or cars, is less than what would be expected for the price point. When the numbers are green, it indicates that the quantity of that particular aspect of the property is greater than expected for the price point. The amounts are color-coded exactly the same way as they are on the Results tab. And as I said, a change to any one of the numbers on these 5 columns will cause all of the scenarios to be recalculated. Just be aware though that the changes are not saved. You can move around through the program, but as soon as your selection options change, all of these values will be reset. The next 2 columns are the listing agent, which again is a direct copy from the Results tab, and the same as the date listed. The date listed is highlighted if it is thought that the property has been relisted from a previous date. And days on the market is again just a calculated amount or calculated number of days based on information contained in the advertisements. The next 2 columns, the lowest sold price and the highest sold prices, these relate specifically to each individual configuration of beds, baths and cars. It gives you a clear indication of what the price ranges are for each configuration. The same applies to the number sold, the number on the market, again specific to the configuration of beds, baths and cars. In the case of the high value in the area, this is again related to the configuration, but it gives you an indication that there may be a higher price property being sold somewhere in the vicinity of the property that's been advertised. They're highlighted to indicate the distance that this property is away from the one being advertised. If you point to the cell, you'll get a message indicating just exactly what that distance is. The next 6 columns is the most complex part of the process. Each property is rated based on its perceived potential. You'll notice that there are 6 columns, one relating to each of the different scenarios, and you'll notice that a lot of the cells in relation to each property have a strategy rating. The strategy ratings and the scenarios are described there on the screen and also in the documentation. The methods used to evaluate each property listed are complex and not easily explained, so those interested will find a comprehensive explanation in the GVA Program Operating Instructions document. It's installed with the program and it can be accessed via the Windows menu. What I will say at this point is that the key to the analysis is based on the difference between what I call a configuration group and a price group. Each listed property is assigned a number from 1 to 4 that groups each property listed based on its configuration of beds, baths, car spaces and land size. And also each property is grouped based on their price point. The 2 groups would normally be the same, and if they aren't, the program can assume the property is either under or overpriced, and this distinction is then used to identify which properties have the best opportunity for renovation. One other important aspect of the program is the way in which it calculates a potential sales price. It does this by creating a range of 20 values that range from the lowest price to the highest price of properties sold or listed in the location. The program then uses the range in a way that could best be described as a stepladder. For each change that is made to a property in the form of additional beds, baths or car spaces, or the degree of renovation undertaken, the estimated selling price is determined by the number of steps up the ladder that may be possible based on the changes made. This is where the initial grid variance analysis is important. If the range of prices from lowest to highest in the location is not sufficiently large, the program is unlikely to find any program suitable for renovation or investment. On the right-hand side of the screen, you'll also see the price group and configuration groups that have been calculated by the program. And appearing at the bottom of the screen normally is the configuration that's associated with each of the configuration groups. So as you can see on the screen there, the groups 1, 2, 3 and 4 all have different configurations based on the number of beds, baths and cars. What you'll also see is that some of the cells in the price group and configuration group columns are highlighted in different colours. In the case where the cell is coloured green, it's an indication that the price is lower than would normally be assumed based on the average configuration of beds, baths and cars. And in the cases where the columns or the cells are coloured pink, it's an indication that the reverse is true, where the advertised price is higher than justified by the configuration. And as I mentioned earlier, in normal circumstances, these numbers should be the same. When they're not, it's an indication that a property is either overpriced or underpriced. And the ones that are underpriced are generally those which are likely candidates for renovation. What I've done now is single out a single property, and as you can see on the screen, what I've done is I've selected a cell which has a Y in it, coloured blue, under scenario number 3, which is an indication that a cosmetic renovation with rooms added to meet the group average and sold at a higher price point within the same group will result in a profitable renovation. And it meets all of the requirements, financial requirements of, that I've requested and entered in my defaults. When I click on the cell, I'm presented with two pop-up screens. One is the GVA financial estimates, and you can run down through them. That indicates the price point, the purchase costs, which includes the stamp duty, the costs associated with adding a bathroom, the renovation costs, holding costs, and my profit target, my selling costs. And as I work down the list, you can see that there's a profit and loss estimate based on a sale price, which is substantially higher as a result of the renovation. And it gives me a safety margin of $19,900 over and above what my target profit is. It also calculates what my rent cash flow will be or should be in order for the investment to be neutral. It also provides me with a financial review screen, and all the cells that are coloured green can be modified. So if I were to decide that the purchase price might be less than $850,000, I can change that. The program will automatically recalculate all of the costs associated with it, the stamp duty and the projected outcome will all change. Similarly, I can increase or decrease the number of bedrooms, bathrooms and car spaces that are added. I can change the renovation budgets. I can make any changes that I want to this screen, and it will automatically recalculate all of the financial outcomes. What I've done now is selected a property with the scenario number 6, which is related to potential cash flow and capital growth. And as you can see, this particular property is a buy and rent for cash flow and capital growth, but unfortunately it's in an area where the negative growth applies to the whole of the suburb, but in this particular case the negative growth is above the suburb median, so it's slightly better than the Port Macquarie generally, but still nevertheless a negative. I'm just doing this particularly as an example, but it also pops up with the same types of screens as we saw before, except in this particular case it shows the cash flow and growth estimates, but it gives us the same investment review so that we can still change the purchase price, we can still change the expenses and the interest rates and so on, and have the result recalculated. Without any doubt, the most difficult task in assessing the viability of any project in real estate is the determination of an end sale price. There's no way to be certain an estimated value is attainable. Personal interventions are needed to make sure that any estimates are realistic. However, the program does try to make an educated guess as to the likely sale price for every property listed. An explanation of how this is done can be found in the operating instructions. What I'm going to do now is a live demonstration of just exactly how we can manipulate some of the numbers on this particular sheet. In this live demonstration, I've selected Port Macquarie, New South Wales, and I've processed the selection, and I've also opened the strategy sheet in order to just save a little bit of time. It took approximately 90 seconds for all of the scenarios to be assessed against every property listed, so I just wanted to cut this a little bit shorter. What I'm going to do here is just demonstrate the degree to which this is interactive. So I'll just take one property at random, which is on line 21 here, which doesn't show the sold, highest or lowest sold, and that's simply because some of the information is missing, the number of car spaces. So if I was to contact the agent and just find out how many car spaces there were, I can enter that number. Let's assume that it's 1. The program will automatically then reassess that particular property against the standards that we would expect, and as you can see now, it's given me an approximate price range, 800 to 850,000 for this particular property, and it's advertised for 870,000, so it's a little bit above the market. What it's also done is given me an indication that there's a potential for renovation here, although not necessarily a profitable one. So I'm just going to click on that cell, and what it will do, as you can see, is it's popped up with the financial estimates based on a purchase price of 870,000 with all of the purchase costs and selling and so on, and the addition of the car space that I added, the renovation costs, the holding costs and so on. It's given me a potential profit on a renovation of $42,000, which is less than my profit target, which was $111,000 based on what I'd entered in the defaults tab. But just over on the left hand side, the right hand side, you'll see the financial review. And earlier in the presentation I referred to the property values being similar to a step ladder. In this particular case, the purchase price of 870,000 is just underneath the 8th rung of the ladder, and I'm selling at the 10th rung of the ladder. So that's the degree of the increase that I've been able to achieve. But what I can do here is I can modify this particular price. So this property was advertised initially with a range. So what I'll do is I'll just change this to 820,000. The program will recalculate all of the costs associated with the stamp duty, the holding costs and the renovation costs and so on. It's now at just over the 7th point in the step ladder. It's still selling at 10, but now my projected outcome is a profit of 96,000 against my profit target of 106,000. So it falls slightly short. What I could perhaps do is cut back on my renovation costs just by skimming a little bit out of it, and now I've got a projected outcome of close to 105,000 against my profit target of 104,000. So it's this analysis tells me that there's a potential for profit if I can achieve that those particular results. What I can also do, rather than change the amount to 820,000 as the purchase price for this particular property, what I can do is actually make the change on the list of property prices. So if I went back to the property here, for example, there was a price guide of 840 to 870,000. The program has estimated the purchase price to be at the high point. I can change that to 840,000, and I can change that because I'd changed the number of car spaces. I can remove that, and again it will recalculate all of the options associated with that particular property. And as you can see now, when we go here, now it can't find any options that are suitable for this particular property. What I'm also going to do is just to click on a property where there's an estimated cash flow or growth potential. We get the same pop-ups this time, but this time it's a cash flow or growth estimate. So as you can see, this property has a negative cash flow and